This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Look, I have to admit something. As much as I love to break down the nuts and bolts of football, to break down every inch of the Cleveland Browns roster, sometimes, I admit, I kind of want to relax a little bit. I kind of want to talk about something less serious than the changes to the cadence of the passing game that Ken Dorsey's going to bring to the Browns, or, you know, how Jerry Jeudy's addition affects the Browns. Now, look, we're going to have time to talk about that. We're going to talk about all the free agency stuff. We're going to talk about the draft stuff. I promise you, stay subscribed and locked in to make sure you catch those videos. They're going to come very soon. But what I want to do today is indulge the intrusive thought and talk about something that's a little bit less serious, man. That's jersey numbers. I also have one more confession. In addition to being a football nerd who will find a way to watch all 4 UFL games on a given week, I am also a uniform nerd. Like, I get nerdy about NFL uniforms. And one of the things that really scratched that itch for me was Grant Delpit changing his number from 22, which has always been a pretty solid look for him, to 9, which is the number he wore when he was one of the best players in the country at LSU. And that had me think, man, it took a while for me to get used to Grant Delpit wearing double-digit numbers. And now that he's back at 9, there's going to be this weird adjustment period where I'm getting used to Grant Delpit being number 9. But it made me think about other times that something about a player's uniform just didn't feel right. Now, if you're at home and you don't know what I'm talking about, we've all experienced it. When we've seen a guy walk out in a uniform and something's off. It don't feel like that old thing anymore, right? Like when you see Aaron Rodgers run out there in a Jets jersey and he's wearing number 8, it instead of feeling like a real thing that's happening, it feels like something that would pop up on you when you're playing like a Madden franchise mode. It don't feel real. And there have been instances of this on the Cleveland Browns, on things that are somewhat associated with the Cleveland Browns, and things that pop up when you look back in retrospect that make you look at those jerseys or look at the combination or the swag on the jersey and just think, ew, it don't look right no more. First things first, we don't talk about this in Cleveland. We try to hide evidence of this as much as possible, but y'all, it happened. Nick Chubb used to wear the number 31. This was also during that weird stretch of time where Hugh Jackson was copying the Ohio State black tape thing. So basically, Ohio State does this thing where you earn your stripe, right? You know, the iconic Ohio State helmet stripe. Well, when you start out at Ohio State as a freshman, you don't get the helmet stripe. Immediately, you get the black tape. And if you earn the respect of your peers, you get that black tape taken off and you get helmet stripe on. It's like when people talk about hazing or like earning your stripes, that's like a good example of a way that you can do it and it not be completely toxic, right? Like, that's great. That's a great thing for college. When you try to do it in the NFL, you just come off as unserious, man. Like, it's the NFL. These are 18-year-olds. Like, I think it's something that did play better than we remembered to certain sections of the fan base, particularly the sections of the fan base that like want Kevin Stefanski to cuss his players out on the sideline. And I feel like that section of the fan base feels like everything should be how it was done in high school and not really in a professional environment. But in a professional environment, where you're telling guys who almost certainly will make the team because of their contract that they have to earn their stripes. It's just kind of silly. Like, the illusion of merit is not there like it is in college. And let's be real, there are always going to be guys on any football team that are going to make the team no matter what, right? But when you're in high school, when you're in college, you could believe the myth of the merit. But in the NFL, we all know what it is. It's professional football. Stop playing with this. So the Browns are also out here rocking the helmetless, the stripeless helmet look. And Nick Chubb was wearing 31. Like, Nick Chubb wearing 31 is a reflection of, like, the true reason Hugh Jackson should have gotten fired, which is he refused to play Nick Chubb to the point to where Nick Chubb was out here just wearing afterthought jersey numbers. But yeah, Nick Chubb 31, all-time stank. Okay? All-time stank. No, never felt right, never felt certain, just never clicked, right? We never saw the potential of Nick Chubb when he was wearing 31. All of a sudden, he put that 24 on. We see what it is. All right, let's talk about Josh Rosen wearing 19. Y'all remember when Josh Rosen was on the Browns? You remember when there was a controversy about him wearing the number 19? Because no quarterback on the Cleveland Browns since Bernie Kosar had wore that number, and the first guy to wear it? Josh Rosen. Now, to be fair to Josh Rosen, I don't think there were that many numbers left. Like, he joined the team pretty late in the camp, and 19 was just what was available. I think this was also the first year that they let guys, not quarterbacks, not just quarterbacks, wear those single-digit numbers. So there was also, that had a factor into it, right? That it wasn't just wide receivers, quarterbacks that could wear those numbers, DBs, everybody had their shot at it. So that reduced the number of numbers available for Josh Rosen. But man, Josh Rosen wearing 19 just felt wrong. There was none of it. Nothing about that felt right. Like, nothing about that felt right. So definitely makes the list. Another number that never felt right was JOK wearing 28. Like, we all kind of subconsciously had this thought. JOK will never be an all-pro wearing number 28. Like, I can't explain it. This is not one of my scientific analytical beliefs. This is not one of my beliefs that I would feel confident about trotting on a regular basis. But I do feel like your jersey number combination, like, that has an effect on your aura. And your aura really does have an effect on how people play you. And when you're a linebacker and you wear 28, nobody takes that seriously. Now, you out there wearing number 6, being all fast and stuff. Okay, I feel that. Like, there are certain numbers that feel like, oh, that's going to be a star player, right? Like, when you're a wide receiver and you're wearing 89, that don't feel like a star number, right? Like, star numbers for wide receivers usually like single digits to like low 80s, like 81, 82, 84, right? Like, an 84 is nice and smooth. But like, once you get past like 86, you know what I mean? Like 88, 88 gets grandfathered in, right? 88 is dope. It's like full square. It's nice. But everything else, man, that feel like tight end numbers. And look, I'm not the only one who thinks this. Like, if you think I'm crazy for this, I'm pretty sure a lot of y'all feel this back home. But also players think about this, because you ever hear an NFL player talk about jersey numbers? They sound a lot like how I do right now, talking about these jersey numbers. Like, it's just weird. It's weird, but it's a thing, man. JOK all of a sudden starts wearing number 6 like he did in college, and now he feels like a star. I ain't tripping. Okay, I ain't tripping. That there's something to this. There is just something to this. You can't have a complete dookie number for your position and be out here at the top of your position, right? Like, I think the only people who can escape this are offensive linemen and tight ends, right? Because we just don't care what number they wear. But even then, you're not going to be a great receiving tight end if you're wearing like 40. That's not going to happen. Like, you could be a good tight end. You could be a serviceable tight end, but you're not going to be a top 5 tight end in 2025 or 2024 wearing the number 40. Now that I said this, watch it happen. But like, it's just not that's not the right number, right? Offensive lineman. If you have a tackle wearing like 50, ugh, right? Like you think your tackle is dirt if he's wearing like number 50 or 60 or something. No, you want your tackle to wear something firmly in the 70s, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78. 79 might be acceptable, but you want in the 70s for your tackles. Every other number's for guard and centers, right? But tell me you would feel confident right now if the Browns rolled out a right tackle number 55. Or would you be a little bit down on DeJuan Jones if he decided to change his number from somewhere in the 70s to like 63? I don't know if I would believe in him. Like, just don't feel right. It just don't feel right. And that is what JOK at 28 was, man. That shit didn't feel right. Nobody felt good about JOK wearing the number 28. It looked weird. People kept comparing him to defensive backs. Like the amount of people complaining about JOK's lack of size since he switched to number 6 has reduced drastically, because I think 90% of the reason people thought JOK was so tiny was because he was wearing the number 28. And the number 28 just makes you think that he's a defensive back when he's not. But he's wearing 6. He looks big in 6. He looks much bigger in 6. I don't know why. It works. It works. Him wearing number 6 makes him a better linebacker. Can't explain it, but it's definitely a thing. This is not a Cleveland Brown that wore this number, but this is somebody heavily associated with the Cleveland Browns. Look, you can think Baker Mayfield is a bum that got overrated by a certain section of fans in Cleveland. You could think that Baker Mayfield is the best thing since Bernie Kosar. But there's the one thing that we both agree on Baker Mayfield, about Baker Mayfield on, is 6. That's his number, right? Like, that's his forever number. He will only look right in 6. You look back at them old Texas Tech clips when he's wearing 11, don't feel right. And you know what felt wrong? When Baker Mayfield was out here wearing 17, right? Like 6 is just a good number for him. It fits him. I can't describe it, but it is a good number for Baker Mayfield. And he was out there wearing 17, never felt right. Another thing that retrospectively does not feel right, and I can explain this thoroughly, is when you see an old clip of the Cleveland Browns, especially from the post expansion era, and somebody's wearing 95. Like, Myles Garrett is so obviously a Hall of Famer at this point. He's so obviously somebody who's going to get his jersey retired by the Cleveland Browns. And that 95 is such an iconic number already in Cleveland Browns history, as he not just is the guy who has the single season sack record for the Cleveland Browns, he is basically the single season sack record. Like, you look at the top 5 for single season sack records, by the time Myles Garrett retires, it's just going to be his whole career. Right? Like, that's going to be the record. It's basically Myles Garrett's whole career. He just continued to reset the sack bar. And when you have a player, especially at a more flashy position than what Joe Thomas was at left tackle, right? He wore 73. When you have somebody that is that iconic at a more flashy position, a more notable position, it makes it feel weird when you see anybody in that uniform wear that jersey number under any context. Like, if you go back and you see Armonte Bryant in 95, it feels super weird. It feels like you're watching a Myles Garrett movie and they got some actor playing Myles Garrett, so it's not Myles Garrett. It's somebody that's supposed to look like Myles Garrett. It's one of those weird things that's hard to explain but easy to explain, and I'll just say it right now, 95 on anybody other than Myles Garrett will always look weird in the Cleveland Browns uniform. In this last part, I am just going to complain about the FUBU jerseys that the Cleveland Browns wore from whatever to whenever. I hated those jerseys. You know what I'm talking about. The ones with the long ass stripes that went to the chest and the Cleveland across the chest. And look, I have heard very few people try to justify these ugly ass jerseys, but I have heard some people defend these jerseys. For what reason? I don't know. But I do have one goal in life. I never want these jerseys to come back in style. I never want us to act like we're nostalgic for these jerseys. I never want us to look back and say, hey, man, how fun as a meme would it be if we wore the 0-16 jersey? I don't ever want this team to acknowledge the existence of those FUBU jerseys that the Cleveland Browns were wearing. They were that bad. I hated them. They were so tacky. By the time that they were introduced, they were already out of date, but too forward thinking to be out of, like, it was just ugly from every standpoint. And the worst thing about that entire era of jersey is that they did have one jersey that made the decisions that they made with that uniform not atrocious. Right? And it was the orange jersey. They wore that thing once, man. They wore it once. It was one time they wore that jersey. They changed all of the iconic design language of the Cleveland Browns to put, like, let me further back. Like, it makes me so mad it's hard to talk about it. The Cleveland Browns are one of those teams that are iconic with their history, right? Like, we're the team associated with the NFL Hall of Fame. We're the team heavily associated with the greatness of Paul Brown's legacy, one of the best coaches of all time. We're the team associated with the early days of the NFL, before it blew up, before the Super Bowl era. And when you have a franchise like that, their design language is historic. You don't go and change the Green Bay Packers uniforms. Hell, even the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are historic at a much more recent point than the Cleveland Browns, right? They were historic in the 70s. The Browns were historic in the 60s and 50s and 40s. They don't even change their uniforms from where they started at that point. Like, you had Jim Brown, one of the pillars of the NFL, on your franchise. When that happens to you, you do not change much about the design language of your team. You want it to always loosely be associated with that era of greatness. And the Browns threw all that shit away so we could put Cleveland on the chest. And lose. And part of me is glad that we wore those jerseys when we did, because the darkest, most terrible era of Cleveland Browns football, I can easily disassociate from, because I just act like the years that we were wearing those jerseys, we were a completely different team. Like, that's not the Browns. That's not the Browns as a franchise. Like, we are a different team. Like, I just disassociate from that entire era every time I see it. But those jerseys were god awful. Just god awful. Disgusting. They ruin, like, the Browns have a very iconic shoulder sleeve. Like, they have a very iconic helmet. It's not hard to get the Browns jersey right, because they got it right in the 1960s. Like, that's what the Browns jersey should forever look like. Some version of that. And we threw out this abomination. Look, there are people who want Jimmy Haslam to sell the team because they still mad about this. They done brought back the white face mask. They done brought back the classic uniform combos, the orange pants. Like, they have went overboard the last few years, basically to apologize for that bullshit that they put on our screen. It was one of every good Browns player that's ever wore that jersey. I'm gonna put David Njoku on the screen. I'm gonna put Denzel Ward on the screen. I'm gonna put Nick Chubb on the screen. I'm gonna put Myles Garrett on the screen. Every time you see them in this jersey, it feels disgusting, right? It's like you're watching them play for a different franchise, because this might as well have been a uniform from a different franchise. The Browns, it's not hard to mess it up. It's not easy to mess up the Cleveland Browns design language. It really isn't. It's a classic team. They have a classic uniform pattern. You don't got to put nothing on the helmet. You ain't got to make the helmet nothing special. We don't need chrome helmets. Like, we don't need to do any flashy shit. We're the Cleveland Browns. We have a iconic and recognizable uniform design language. You know why the Browns are a very popular team internationally? Because you could put the Browns uniform in front of somebody random and they know that's the Cleveland Browns. And we changed it to something that looked like a mess. For what? For what? I'm just glad that they didn't throw like a logo on that helmet at this time. And look, we were all excited when it happened, but let's not act like those uniform jerseys let's not act like that's the last thing in your closet on rotation. Look at me in the eye. Look at me in the eye. Look at me in the eye. Tell me right now that Browns jersey you got in 2014, well, not 2014, 2015, 16, 17, 18, that Browns jersey that you got. Not like the Color Rush jersey that was kind of cool. No. Not that jersey that looked kind of classic. No, I'm talking about the long stripe with Cleveland on the chest. Tell me right now, look me in the face, have the courage to do it and tell me that is in the top of your rotation in your closet. Tell me right now that jersey ain't in the attic and shit. Okay, tell me right now that you wear that jersey on a regular basis at will. Like, you want to wear that. Not you wear it because it's the jersey you got and you can't afford a new jersey because that's expensive. I'm not shaming you if you're doing that. But if you have other options and you choose that jersey, I do judge you. Okay, because why are we keeping it around? And in 20 years, if these kids try to bring that shit back around because they think that jersey combination was cool for whatever reason, I will be standing here in front of that trend, being as furious as I am about it right now, in 20 years, hopefully, just to tell these younger people, to tell these people, stop it. We don't ever need to bring these jerseys back. We don't ever have to acknowledge their existence. We just don't have to act like they're canon to the Cleveland Browns because they're non-canon to me. They're non-canon. I don't think they happen. They ain't real. I don't talk about these jerseys no more. No. We will never talk about them. Worst jerseys of all time. And every single player you've seen in them look like they didn't belong, so it somehow fits into the premise of this video. Thank you for watching. Let me know your thoughts on the Cleveland Browns uniforms as time have went on, and guys that you felt like had the wrong jersey number while they were in Cleveland or after they left Cleveland. Let me know in the comment section down below. I'm genuinely interested in what you guys have to say about this because I can think of like a bunch of different combinations that just never felt right. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.